The asteroid mining vessel Prosperity shuddered as another plasma cutter overheated in the cargo bay. Captain Elena Vasquez wiped sweat from her forehead and checked the readings on her tablet. The rare mineral deposits on asteroid KEPLER442b were proving more challenging to extract than the surveys had indicated. The crystalline formations seemed to pulse with an inner light, making standard mining equipment malfunction. "Captain, we're getting strange energy readings from Section 7, called out her engineer, Rodriguez, from across the cramped bridge. "The crystals are resonating at frequencies our equipment can't handle." Elena frowned as she studied the data. 3 weeks into what should have been a routine mining operation, and they were barely meeting quotas. The mining corporation back on Earth wouldn't be happy, but safety came first. She'd seen too many mining accidents in her 15 years of deep space operations. "Power down the plasma cutters in that section," she ordered. "We'll try a different approach tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. The explosion happened without warning. One moment Elena was reviewing safety protocols in her quarters. The next she was thrown against the bulkhead as the ship's artificial gravity failed. Emergency alarms blared throughout the vessel as hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. The acrid smell of burning electronics filled the air. Elena pulled herself to her feet, her left arm hanging uselessly at her side. Through the chaos, she could hear Rodriguez shouting orders to the crew. But his voice was getting weaker, more distant. She stumbled toward the bridge, her vision blurring from what felt like a severe concussion. "Captain," Rodriguez's voice crackled over the failing communication system. "Main reactor is critical. The crystal formations are feeding back energy into our systems." Elena reached the bridge just as the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in an eerie red glow. The view screen showed the asteroid's surface rushing toward them at alarming speed. They were going to crash. "All hands to escape pods," Elena ordered, though she wasn't sure if anyone could hear her over the groaning of the ship's hull. She made her way to the emergency pod bay, but the damage was worse than she'd thought. Most of the escape pods had been destroyed in the initial explosion. The last thing Elena remembered was the impact, the grinding of metal against rock, the sickening sensation of tumbling through space, and then darkness. She woke up to the sound of crystals singing. Elena's eyes opened slowly, her vision still blurry from the crash. She was lying on something soft, but it wasn't the cold metal of a ship's deck. The air smelled different to clean, with a hint of ozone that reminded her of thunderstorms back on Earth. As her vision cleared, she gasped. She was in a cavern unlike anything she'd ever seen. The walls were covered in massive crystals that pulsed with soft, multicolored light. The formations were so intricate and beautiful that they seemed almost organic, as if they had grown rather than formed naturally. But what shocked her most were the beings standing around her. They were tall and slender, with skin that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the cavern walls. Their faces were angular but kind, with large eyes that shifted color like opals. When they moved, their bodies caught and refracted the light from the crystals, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the cave walls. One of them stepped forward, and Elena felt a strange tingling in her mind. Suddenly, she could understand what they were saying, though they weren't speaking aloud. "Do not fear," the voice said in her thoughts. "We are the Zephyrians. You are safe now." Elena tried to sit up, but pain shot through her body. Her left arm was definitely broken, and she could feel the warmth of blood on her forehead. "My crew," she whispered. "Are they?" The Zephyrian's opal eyes dimmed slightly. We found only you. Your metal vessel broke apart on impact. We brought you here when we felt your pain. Tears stung Elena's eyes. Rodriguez, Chen, Williams, all gone. She was alone, stranded, on an uncharted asteroid with beings she'd never even known existed. You grieve for your packmates, the Zephyrian said gently. This is good. It shows you have heart fire. My name is Kyrian. I am the keeper of this crystal garden. Over the next few days, Elena learned that she had crashed into the middle of a Zephyrian settlement. The asteroid wasn't just a mineral deposit. It was their home, a place they had cultivated for thousands of years. The crystals weren't just geological formations. They were living beings, symbiotic with the Zephyrians. Kyrian explained that his people were peaceful, spending their time nurturing the crystal gardens and sharing knowledge through their telepathic abilities. They had no weapons, no armies, no concept of war. When they felt Elena's ship approaching, they had tried to warn her about the energy fields, but their telepathic messages couldn't reach human minds. We should have found a way to communicate, Kyrian said, his mental voice heavy with regret. Your packmates died because we failed to bridge the gap between our peoples. Elena shook her head, wincing at the movement. It wasn't your fault. We didn't know you existed. Our sensors showed this place as uninhabited. The Zephyrians had healing abilities that seemed almost magical to Elena. They used specific crystal resonances to accelerate her body's natural healing processes. Within a week, her broken arm was mending, and the concussion symptoms were fading. But the emotional wounds would take much longer to heal. During her recovery, Elena learned to appreciate the Zephyrian way of life. They showed her their crystal gardens, where each formation had been carefully cultivated over centuries. They shared their memories through touch, allowing her to experience their history and culture firsthand. Young Zephyrians, barely more than children, would visit Elena daily, fascinated by this strange being from the stars. One of them, a female named Zara, seemed particularly drawn to Elena. Her crystalline skin had a more blue-green tint than the others, and her mental voice had a musical quality that reminded Elena of wind chimes. Your people must be very brave, Zara said one day as they sat together in the main crystal chamber. To travel between the stars, to seek new worlds, it requires great courage. Elena smiled sadly. Sometimes I wonder if we're brave or just foolish. We push into unknown territories, often without thinking about the consequences. But you learn, Zara replied, and you feel pain for your mistakes. This is how wisdom grows. As weeks passed, Elena realized that her emergency beacon had been damaged in the crash. The Zephyrians had tried to help her repair it, but their technology was based on crystal resonance, completely different from human electronics. She began to accept that she might never leave this place, but she found that the thought didn't terrify her as much as it once had. The Zephyrians had welcomed her into their community, sharing their knowledge and their peaceful existence. She had learned to tend the crystal gardens, to feel the subtle vibrations that indicated a formation's health and growth. Then, on a day when the asteroid's twin suns aligned in a particularly beautiful way, casting rainbow light throughout the cavern, Elena felt a familiar vibration in her pocket. Her emergency beacon was working again. Kyrian sensed her excitement immediately. Your packmates come for you. I think so, Elena said, looking at the beacon's blinking light. But I don't know if I want to leave. You must, Kyrian said gently. You have a purpose among your people, just as we have our purpose here. But you will always be welcome in our crystal gardens. The rescue ship arrived 3 days later. Alina watched from the cavern entrance as the sleek human vessel landed near the wreckage of her mining ship. She recognized the markings. It was a military rescue craft, probably sent by the mining corporation when the Prosperity failed to report in. Commander Marcus Chen led the rescue team, his environmental suit gleaming in the asteroid's pale sunlight. Alina had worked with Chen before. He was a good man, thorough and careful. When his team found her, their relief was obvious even through their helmet visors. "Alina, thank God you're alive," Chen said over the com. "We've been searching for weeks. How did you survive out here?" Alina looked back at the cavern entrance, where she could see the soft glow of the crystal formations. The Zephyrians had retreated deeper into their underground city, not wanting to frighten the humans with their presence. But she could feel their farewell wishes in her mind, warm and bittersweet. "I had help," she said simply. During the journey back to human space, Alina made a decision. She filed a report with the mining corporation, recommending that Kepler 442 be classified as a protected site due to unstable mineral formations. She made no mention of the Zephyrians, knowing that such a discovery would bring miners, scientists, and eventually the military. But she never forgot them. Every night, she would think about the crystal gardens, about Kyrian's wisdom and Zara's curiosity. She had promised them that she would keep their secret, and she intended to honor that promise. Alina threw herself into her work, earning promotion after promotion. She became an expert in first contact protocols, though she never revealed the source of her knowledge. She pushed for regulations protecting indigenous species, for careful exploration rather than exploitation. 3 years passed. Alina had been promoted to admiral, commanding a small fleet of exploration vessels. She thought about the Zephyrians often, wondering if they were still tending their crystal gardens, still sharing their peaceful existence. In the depths of space, she never expected to hear from them again. The message came while she was reviewing reports in her quarters aboard the flagship Defiance. It wasn't transmitted through normal communication channels. Instead, it appeared directly in her mind, just as Kyrian's voice had during her recovery. But this wasn't Kyrian's calm, measured tone. This was Zara's voice, filled with terror and desperation. "Alina, please, if you can hear this, we need your help. The Void Hunters have come. They're destroying everything. The crystal gardens are dying, and we don't know how to stop them. Please, you said humans were warriors. We need warriors now." Alina's blood ran cold. She had heard whispers of the Void Hunters in intelligence reports, a species that consumed energy from living beings, leaving nothing but empty husks behind. They had been moving through the outer rim systems, but no one had imagined they would venture into uncharted space. She stood up, her mind racing. The Zephyrians had saved her life, had welcomed her into their peaceful world. Now they were in danger, and she was possibly the only human who knew they existed. Alina walked to her communications console and opened a priority channel to Earth Command. As she waited for the connection, she thought about the promise she had made to keep the Zephyrians secret. She was about to break that promise, but she had no choice. The peaceful beings who had shown her such kindness were about to face extinction, and Alina Vasquez was going to make sure that didn't happen. The returned Admiral, Alina Vasquez, stood before the emergency session of the Human High Command, her jaw set with determination. The holographic displays around the war room showed star charts and fleet positions. But Elena's attention was focused on the faces of the 5 commanders who held the power to authorize what she was about to propose. "Admiral Buscus," said General Harrison, the gruff leader of the Outer Rim Defense Force. Your request for an immediate military deployment to these coordinates is ... unusual. According to our charts, that sector is uninhabited. Alina took a deep breath. For 3 years, she had kept the Zephyrians secret. Now she was about to reveal everything. Sir, I need to brief you on a classified first contact situation from my time as a mining captain. The room fell silent. First contact with alien species was always a matter of the highest importance, and Alina could see the shift in the commander's expressions from skepticism to intense interest. Over the next hour, Alina told them everything. The crash, her rescue by the Zephyrians, their peaceful culture, and their crystal-based civilization. She showed them the modified emergency beacon that could detect Zephyrian telepathic transmissions, and played back Zara's desperate message. The Void Hunters are energy parasites, Alina explained. They drain life force from living beings and technology. The Zephyrians' crystal gardens are probably the richest energy source they've ever encountered. Commander Sarah Mitchell, head of the Xenobiology Division, leaned forward. If these beings saved your life, why didn't you report first contact immediately? Because I knew what would happen, Alina replied. Mining ships, research teams, military installations. The Zephyrians are peaceful. They've never known war. Contact with us would have destroyed their way of life just as surely as the Void Hunters are doing now. General Harrison studied the star charts. Even if we authorize this mission, it's a significant deployment. The Void Hunters are not a minor threat. Intelligence suggests they've consumed the energy from at least 12 systems, which is exactly why we need to act now, Alina said. The Zephyrians saved 1 human life. The least we can do is return the favor. The debate continued for another hour. Alina could see the commanders weighing the risks against the potential benefits. Finally, General Harrison called for a vote. All in favor of authorizing Operation Crystal Garden. 5 hands rose slowly. Alina felt a surge of relief and gratitude. You have your mission, Admiral, Harrison said, but understand this is not a rescue operation. This is a test of humanity's commitment to protecting peaceful species. Don't let us down. Within 18 hours, Alina had assembled a fleet unlike any in human history. The flagship Defiance led a formation of 12 heavy cruisers, fighters, and 8 support vessels. More importantly, Alina had handpicked every crew member for their experience with alien contact situations. Commander Marcus Chen, who had led Elena's rescue years earlier, volunteered to serve as tactical coordinator. His experience with unusual situations made him invaluable for what they were about to face. ETA to the Zephyrian system is 6 hours, Chen reported as they entered hyperspace. Long-range sensors are detecting significant energy disturbances. In the target area, Alina nodded, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the stars streak past. Any word from our contact? Intermittent signals, Chen replied. The telepathic transmissions are getting weaker. Whatever the Void Hunters are doing, it's affecting the Zephyrians' ability to communicate. The journey felt like the longest of Elena's life. She kept thinking about Zara's musical voice, about Kyrian's gentle wisdom, about the peaceful crystal gardens that had become her sanctuary during the darkest time of her life. If they were destroyed, it would be like losing a piece of her soul. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace, Elena's worst fears were confirmed. The asteroid that had once been a hidden paradise was now a battlefield. Dark, spider-like vessels surrounded the Zephyrian home, their energy beams cutting into the surface like surgical knives. Where the beams touched, the beautiful crystal formations turned black and crumbled to dust. "My God," whispered Chen, "there are dozens of them." Alina could see the Void Hunter's ships clearly now. They were organic-looking, with segmented bodies and multiple energy-draining appendages. Each one was the size of a human cruiser, but they moved with the fluid grace of living creatures. "All ships. This is Admiral Vasquez," Alina announced over the fleet communications. "We are engaging an unknown hostile force that is attacking a peaceful civilization. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Our mission is to protect the Zephyrian population and drive off the attackers." The battle began immediately. The Void Hunters seemed to sense the approaching human fleet and turned their attention from the asteroid to the new threat. Alina watched as energy beams that had been draining the crystal formations swiveled toward her ships. Evasive maneuvers. Chen ordered all fighters, attack pattern Delta. The human ships scattered, their pilots using every trick they had learned in years of combat training. But the Void Hunters were unlike any enemy they had faced. The energy beams seemed to track their movements, and several fighters were caught. In the deadly streams, Alina watched in horror as the beams touched the fighter craft. The ships didn't explode, they simply went dark, their energy drained away, leaving empty shells drifting in space. "Conventional weapons are ineffective," reported the weapons officer. "The energy beams are draining power from our plasma cannons before they can reach the targets." Elena's mind raced. The Void Hunters fed on energy, which meant they were vulnerable to energy starvation. But how could they cut off the energy flow to creatures that could drain power from anything they touched? Then she remembered the crystal gardens. The Zephyrians had told her that their crystals could store and redirect energy in ways that human technology couldn't match. If the crystals were still functional. "Chen, get me a communication channel to the Zephyrian settlement," Alina ordered. "I'm trying, Admiral, but the interference is too strong." Alina closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, the way Kyrian had taught her years ago. She focused on the mental connection she had shared with the Zephyrians, hoping that some trace of that bond remained. "Zara, Kyrian, can you hear me?" The response came weakly, filled with pain and exhaustion. "Alina, you came back, ... I promised I would never forget you. Listen carefully, we need your help. The crystal formations, can you use them to redirect energy? Some gardens still function, but the Void Hunters drained faster than we can restore." Alina opened her eyes, a plan forming in her mind. "All ships form a defensive perimeter around the asteroid. I need volunteers for a surface mission." "Admiral, that's suicide," Chen protested. "The energy drain will kill anyone who gets close." "Not if we work with the Zephyrians," Alina replied. "They know how to manipulate crystal energy. If we can create a feedback loop." 15 minutes later, Alina led a team of 6 volunteers to the asteroid's surface. They wore specially modified environmental suits with additional shielding. But everyone knew it might not be enough. The surface was a wasteland. Beautiful crystal formations that had once glowed with inner light were now black and lifeless. But as Elena's team moved deeper into the cavern system, they found pockets of resistance. Kyrion met them at the entrance to the main crystal chamber. The Zephyrian leader looked tired and faded, his crystalline skin dull with exhaustion, but his opal eyes still held warmth when he saw Alina. "You honor us with your return," he said, "but I fear we are beyond saving." "Not yet," Alina replied aloud, knowing that her team needed to hear the conversation. "Can you show us how to reverse the energy flow?" make the crystals push power out instead of storing it. Kirian's eyes brightened slightly, a dangerous strategy. But perhaps, yes, it might work. Working together, humans and Zephyrians began modifying the crystal formations. Elena's team provided technical expertise, while the Zephyrians used their innate connection to the crystals to guide the process. It was delicate work, requiring precise timing and perfect coordination. Above them, the space battle continued. Elena could hear the explosions and feel the vibrations through the asteroid's structure. Her fleet was holding their own, but they couldn't keep fighting indefinitely. "Ready?" called out Elena's chief engineer. "But Admiral, this is going to create a massive energy pulse. Anyone within a kilometer of the crystals... will be perfectly safe," Elena finished, looking at Kirian. "The Zephyrians can shield us with their abilities." "Isn't that right?" Kirian nodded slowly. "We can protect those who have shown us kindness. But you must trust us completely." Elena looked at her team, seeing the fear and determination in their faces. "Do it." The crystal formations erupted in brilliant light. Energy poured out of the asteroid in focused beams, striking the Void Hunter ships with devastating effect. The creatures that had been draining power for so long suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by more energy than they could absorb. One by one, the Void Hunter ships began to retreat, their organic hulls glowing with excess energy. They had come to consume, but instead had been force-fed beyond their capacity in the main crystal chamber. Elena and her team watched in amazement as the Zephyrian formations began to glow with renewed life. The energy pulse had not only driven off the attackers, but had also restored power to the damaged crystals. Zara appeared at Elena's side, her blue-green skin now shimmering with health. "You saved us all," she said, her mental voice filled with joy, "just as we once saved you." Elena smiled, feeling tears of relief running down her cheeks. "We keep our promises. Always." The aftermath of the battle saw the beginning of a new chapter in human-Zephyrian relations. With the threat of the Void Hunters eliminated, Elena was able to establish formal diplomatic contact. The Zephyrians, no longer able to remain hidden, agreed to a limited alliance with humanity. A joint research station was established in the asteroid system, where human scientists and Zephyrian crystal tenders worked together to understand the unique properties of the crystal formations. The knowledge gained from this collaboration would eventually lead to new forms of energy, storage, and faster-than-light communication. But for Elena, the most important outcome was much simpler. She had kept her promise to the beings who had saved her life. She had shown that humanity could be trusted, that they would protect those who had shown them kindness. As she stood in the restored crystal gardens, watching human and Zephyr children play together among the glowing formations, Elena knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity had proven that they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together,